Okay, so in this video I want to go over just briefly some of my thoughts about writing one of these ads, especially an ad that would be used for testimonial advertising. And it's probably a word of caution. Just make sure in your state that that's something that you can do. And I think you can in just about any state, but it's very important that you actually tell the exact story of what happened. Don't embellish things, don't change things. I never did that. I would sit down with the patient. In this case, I know I sat down with this girl and her mom even, and we went through bullet points. I made sure they were comfortable with us telling this story, and we went through bullet points. I wrote the initial ad. I had them look at it to make sure everything was accurate, and more times than not, usually there would be something that needed to be changed, and so we would change that so they were okay with it, to make sure that it was exactly what happened, and then we would run the ad. But each of our ads would kind of flow into each other, and so one would kind of reference the last, because we had a pretty large following of people that would look at these ads and follow what happened with my wife really each month, and it became a big thing, and she really became almost, I would say, kind of famous in our city because of it. So a couple things to start with that I think are really important. One, there must be a picture in the ad that is kind of cute or inviting of some kind. You can make these pictures really cheesy and weird. I don't think you should do that. Keep them more professional. And if we went back today, I would honestly dress my wife up a little bit more and probably have her in a suit jacket or something. I think this is a little bit too laid back in this picture, but at the time we were pretty young in practice, and it was kind of how our practice was, so we were pretty relaxed in practice. But in any case, outside of this picture, also must have a great title. Now, in this particular story, this girl's school started accusing her of basically lying about being sick so that she could miss school, and they were threatening to suspend her, and so the title, "No One Believed Me But Her," just meant Dr. Amy and I were really the first people that believed her when she was saying that she wasn't making this up. So we thought about it for a little bit, like that'd be a great title, so we used that. So you want to try to think about the story you have and try to come up with a good title based on that. The third most important thing outside of the picture and the title is this first paragraph has to be good. And it says here, "I read a story once about how the doctor in this picture changed her husband's life. She changed my life too, and I had to tell my story." So in that first paragraph, it's referencing basically the last story that we had done before this, which was about my wife helping me with heart issues that I had. And I know this girl really had read that story. It's the reason that she came into our office, and that's why we wrote that as the first paragraph. But I think this is a good enough paragraph to be able to get someone to come to read the second paragraph. And if you can get them to read the second, they'll probably read the third, and more than likely they'll keep reading through the whole thing, which is the goal. So outside of that, the testimonial stories always go through the same format. There's always a part in the beginning where you're talking about, in these first few paragraphs, everything that had been going on with them through their life and all the problems they were having. And then sooner or later, they always generally ended up at the hospital. And so it starts talking about how she was diagnosed with a weak immune system, and they started her on constant antibiotics for 1 year. And all these things are exactly what happened to her. And all the drugs, of course, didn't help. They did a good job of helping her a little, but it didn't fix the problem. And they got really frustrated, and they were in the medical office all the time getting more antibiotics and trying to figure out what was going on. And then, of course, Dr. Amy comes into the story. So it says that she read a story about how Dr. Amy had helped me with heart problems that I had, which is absolutely true. It's my testimonial. A little bit of caution on that, though. Be careful about the kind of stories you tell, even if they are true, because my experience is that state boards don't really care if your story is true or not. So I got in trouble eventually for telling my testimonial story, because they said I was giving people with heart conditions the wrong idea that chiropractic could help them. And so I agree chiropractic doesn't fix every kind of heart condition, but it definitely can help with arrhythmia issues, which is what I had, and I had a pretty crazy story of all the surgeries and heart problems, heart medication I went through for 20 years that stopped because of chiropractic. So I thought people should know that story, because I wish someone would have told me that story, so I didn't have to go through all the garbage I did, but the state board didn't agree with that. So depends on your state. Just be careful with some of the things you could talk about. But in any case, it says she read our story, and then she and her parents had come into the office and they were pretty nervous. They had never been to a chiropractor before and they didn't know if they believed in it, which is typical of a lot of patients. So I told that in the story. And then of course, I started to notice changes within the first week. My headaches were gone, I was breathing more easily, and then she didn't take antibiotics for a year, I think it says in here. I mean, her health completely, absolutely changed, and it said that here. She was really thankful and happy. They were some of our most loyal patients in the office after that. They referred a lot of people to us, and so it kind of ends, her story ends there. And then all of our ads were the same. They would always pick up then and say, Emily had this patient had a great story, but there are a lot of other things that chiropractic can help besides the things that just she had. And here are some of the other things that we help. So it would tell that, in the story. We'd always put a couple other testimonials from other patients in of things that we help them with. And then underneath that there would be some offer to come in. Now we generally didn't do $67, we just changed this ad up a little bit, but in any case, it kind of walks through what our offer was, talks about our qualifications, says that we have a really nice refreshing office, and then what our office is called, where we are, and our website. We noticed when we started putting the website on there, a lot of people go check out the website also. We started getting a lot more hits when we did that, and it was just another way to educate people a little bit more before they came to see us. But that's kind of the flow of these ads, and they're all kind of the same. I never made things up. I didn't embellish things. The stories that happen in your office every month are cool enough that you don't need to do that stuff. If your office is anything like ours, we had tons of really cool patients' stories that came in on a regular basis. So when you have one of those, sit down and ask that person if they'd be willing to do something like this with you. And then we would put these stories either on an insert in the newspaper, and that we actually even had a newspaper in our city that we could do a full front page ad basically on, and so we would take these stories and put them on the front page of that newspaper. And I know when we ran this particular testimonial story, I want to say we got probably 40 or 50 new patients that came to the office from it after they read this story, and they were just inspired by it, and they found something in it that they thought related to them, and it was the reason that they came to our office as well, and it changed their life too. So I think running a story ad like this is powerful because it shows people in the public that have no idea what you can help them with, the kind of amazing things that chiropractic can help with. So I encourage you to work on something like this. Try to see if it'll work in your area. Sometimes these kind of ads just don't work in certain cities. I know some of my friends have tried some of these things and it hasn't worked well for them, but in our city it did very well. And if you follow that format, which is basically just telling the story that the person's telling you, my caution on it is that sometimes I'll see doctors write a testimonial story, instead of having like 3 columns here, they'll put 4, and they write way too much. Keep the story concise, tell the most important things. You don't have to put every single thing that ever happened into the story and make it 17 pages long. Hit the high points, keep it interesting. People will lose their attention span will be short on this. It needs to keep them kind of excited as they're going through. So don't go overboard with length of the story. But other than that, I hope this helped. I think it's a great thing to work on for your office as far as print advertising, and just make sure you're aware of all the different regulations and rules in your area so that you don't get yourself in trouble with something. But I hope this helps.